Wow. How does it feel?
Humbling, but it also reinforces the power of God. And when you allow the hand of God to lead you, what it can lead you to, because I don't know how we got here, but we're here.
What did you have in mind 26 years ago?
26 years ago, I had in mind an organization that would use communication as a tool for development, individual livelihood enhancement, and of course business profitability. And at that time, there was hardly one like this. There was no total communications company like ours. And the difficult thing was that communication was not understood, and it is still not understood. It was very difficult. People saw us as glorified errand boys and girls.
Oh, no.
Yeah, carrying, seeing people off at airports, arranging lunch for business executives and those kinds of things. That's part of what we do, but it's not all of what we do. And then at that time also, I saw that there were young people with no jobs, and thankfully I had had this education, and I thought maybe if I interest them in using communication as a tool to develop themselves and helping communities, countries, businesses also develop, it would work. And from a study table into a shipping container, now we're 26 years. It has required a lot of perseverance, resilience, and positivity. And I find that, interestingly, in our 26th year, that is what is required more than ever with COVID-19. Everybody requires perseverance, resilience, and positivity. So I find it really interesting that at the time that we're celebrating this attitude to entrepreneurship, we also need that in our general lives.
So we'll talk more about business, but now to your life. Where did you grow up? How was life like as a child? What did you do for fun?
Where did I grow up? I was born in Second D.
Wow.
I come from Comenda in the central region. That's where my mother and my father come from. And even though I was born in Second D, they made sure that we were really rooted. And yeah, but we would go to Comenda very often. Sometimes.
What did you do when you go there?
Oh, live the reality of Comenda. I mean, fetch water from the well, fetch water from the spring called Poo and chase the goats and the sheep. And eventually I lived there. I went to school there. I went to Comenda Local Authority Primary School. There's kinds of schools that I think they call Saito these days. That's all I did.
Like?
Oh, it was good. It was very good. I wasn't somebody that really liked going to school. I liked to be with my mother at home.
Why?
My mother, because she did a lot of things. I'm a hands-on person. I like to do a lot of things, and my mother had to be at home after her education to take care of us, and all 5 of us. And while she was doing that, she did many things. She baked, she made kenkey, she crocheted, she knitted, she made toffees, she made cakes, she sold at Mankasim Market, and I tagged along. I was with her all the time. So I really enjoyed that. And I think that some of my entrepreneurship lessons were from her. So born in Second D, lived in Second D for some time, moved to Comenda and lived with my mother there, and that's where we would bake bread and sell to the Comenda Training College and sell at the Comenda Lorry Park. But I started my education in Salt Pond.
Okay.
Yes. Well, I started at Queen Elizabeth Day Nursery in 2nd D. Then we moved to Salt Pond following my postmaster father.
Wow.
And that's when we would go and sell at Mankasim. It was really fun. And Mankasim Market, on market days. And so from Commenda, my mother and my father had determined that I would go to Wesley Girls High School.
Okay.
But first to Mofretro.
Ah.
And Mofretro is 90 years this year.
Okay.
So
lots of celebrations this
year. Mofretro at that time was like the girls' finishing school in Kumasi. So I took the exam and I passed, and I went on to Mofretro. That train ride was amazing because I had never really left my mother, and she traveled with me to Kumasi.
How was that experience like for her, going with you?
I think it was really emotional, but my mother was a stickler for tidiness and structured existence. So she took me, worked with me to make my bed, organized my trunk and my chop box, and ensured that I would keep it like that all the time.
How did the other girls react?
Oh, they've always known that. I mean, up till now, they know I'm a very organized person because that's how my mother structured me. And so she left me there. It was really emotional for both of us. And it exposed me to a lot. I met people, I heard names that I'd never heard before. And I began to write her a letter to tell her all about it. So we got in on Friday, and on Monday I was in class when I was told that 2 uncles of mine were looking for me.
Hey.
So I thought, well, what's up? Mom wants me to come back home. I went to the office, the headmistress's office, bless her soul, Mrs. Wilberforce. She passed recently at the age of 101.
Wow.
Yes. So I went to her and she said I had to go home. And so I thought that,
got to school.
Yeah, I just got to school. I thought that I was my mother's assistant, basically, because my elder siblings had gone.
And you were the last born.
I was the last born. I was keeping the money, keeping the records and all that.
So you thought your mom wanted you back home?
I thought that I had probably not put something in the right place and she needed information. So I hopped in with my uncles, 2 uncles. They didn't tell me anything. We were just talking. We made the long trip on the train to 2nd D, and then we continued to Commenda by road. But when we got to Commenda Junction and traveling into Commenda, I saw a lot of people, my mother's friends from 2nd D and all that, but they were in black. And I actually thought that one of my older uncles who was in the house with us was gone. So I asked in the car, but who is it that's dead that so many of my mother's friends and all that are here? And the driver says, oh, Mr. A.B. Sam's firstborn. And that's my mother.
Oh my God.
She was dead at the age of 11. And she was all I knew because my mother and my father separated early. So I said, you don't know my mother? He says, oh, that's your mother. I said, let me get out of this car. I'm done. So when I talk about perseverance, when I talk about resilience, when I talk about staying positive, it's just been my life. I've had to be positive. People say I'm really forgiving, I'm too generous, because, hey, so by the time we got to the cemetery, she was already buried. And I didn't see my mother's grave until after 25 years.
Why?
I guess they thought they were protecting our emotions.
Did you want to see it at that age?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. But so when eventually I became a communications professional, and we were all very young. When my big brother was out of the country, he had gone out on a scholarship by, I think, the German government to study medicine in Germany. So he came back after we were grown and said, let's go see our mother's grave. Let's go put a tombstone on it. And at that time, I had finished communication school, so I did a little brochure, and we put on her grave, "The love you sowed in us still grows." She was an amazing, loving, forgiving, enterprising, hardworking, selfless woman.
How was life like without her? I mean, growing up with her, baking with her, selling with her, and now you have to be by yourself.
Extremely difficult. And I guess in our tradition, I guess we're yet to come to a place where children are given the space to talk about these things and grief. So one had to manage, you know. But I lived with my grandmother for some time, and she took a decision to let me come to live with my auntie in Accra. So I lived with my auntie, Mrs. Akomensa, for some, you know, throughout my, it was after I gone to secondary school that I moved in to live with her. But then I had gone to Wesley Girls High School. But all through Mafretro, I lived in Komenda, and I really enjoyed it. It was simple. When people ask me what is my dream vacation, it's Komenda.
Why?
Yeah, because there things are so natural. You can hear the sea, the sound of the sea at night. You see, you know, regular people. It's really nice. So I continued in Wesley Girls High School.
At Wesley Girls, when someone asked you what you wanted to be when you grow up, what did you say?
At that time, I was so domestic-minded that I actually, my favorite thing was my apron.
Really?
I thought, and I love people. I love to serve people. I like to work with people. So I thought I would do something hospitality related, because I like to tidy up. I like to cook. I like to, you know, take care of people. So I thought I would do that. But very soon I realized that a passion that had been burning in me when I was a child was really continuing to burn. Between Komenda and Sekondi, I would see a lot of rural communities, and I thought, what can be done to help develop all these communities? I used to ask my mother all the time. So as I got educated, I thought, oh, I wish I could learn something that would enable me to go back to Komenda and work with people to, you know, develop. And so going on with all the difficulties in Ghana and all that, I realized that a lot of the times when things were set at a national level, I didn't feel that they were very much understood by everybody. Budget is red. It's all big and huge, but it had to do with basic individual lives. So I started thinking, what could I do?
How old were you around this time?
I was in Wesley Girls. It was between 13 and whatever.
Why did you have that in mind? I mean, 13-year-olds just thinking about your first boyfriend. I don't know what you're gonna do. Not national development.
No, I wasn't thinking about national development. I was thinking about caring. For instance, I mean, fast forward now. I'm sitting at home writing papers on COVID-19 and behavior change, how African and Ghanaian families can be a weapon against COVID-19. I've worked with my team to come up with the cartoon series, the COVID Prefect. I'm always thinking about how can how can I be
of service?
Of service. I guess it's my mother's upbringing. So, and I actually also thought of law.
Law?
Yeah.
Why law?
Because I thought that sometimes people get into trouble and they're not able to defend themselves. So I thought I would do law and defend people who can't afford it. And so it's been always wanting to care. Mm-hmm. And then I realized that there are organizations that have good products, but their products can benefit people, but people don't understand the products. And sometimes the organizations also don't understand the people. Yeah. And there's sometimes tension. I look at mining companies, for instance. They are for good, but sometimes there's conflict with communities. So all these things were going through my mind. I didn't quite know which of them would become what I would do at the end. But from Wesley Girls High School, where amazingly, by God's grace, I became senior prefect.
How did that happen?
I don't know how it happened. In Wesley Girls High School, it's the students who select, mm-hmm. and there's no campaigning. Wow. We usually have 2 lessons, and then we come for breakfast, and then the rest of the lessons follow. And senior prefects are selected after the first 2 lessons. Okay. We come for breakfast and there's voting. And they voted and I found that I had been selected. And I thought, whoa, I mean, me, how? Because, so that taught me, that helped me to begin to build my leadership skills. By my mother, that is one of the things that she really invested in us. We did everything from brownies to girl guides, boys and girls brigade in the Methodist Church, and everything also that had to do with church, you know, cleaning the chapel, going for early morning prayers and all that. So all that built who I was. So from Wesley Girls, I went to Legon, and that was...
How was that transition like?
It was interesting, because I had been in Mofretro, all girls, Wesley Girls High School, all girls, and I was also a Joyful Way singer. I was in Scripture Union. Some friends and I started the Evangels, which later joined with Noise of Joy to become Joyful Way singers. Wow. So I was not a very, out there person. Then I get to Legon, and I am in Saba Hall. And Saba Hall is a mixed hall. So it was all, and then you have a room to yourself. My roommate and I remember the first time we went out, we took our key. We didn't even lock the door.
Why?
We had never had a room to ourselves where we'd lock the door. So but we were really careful. It was all these boys, and we really were very careful.
Were you afraid of the boys? What was the problem with having all these boys around?
They had something called the Great October Rush. Okay. And we had been told about it. So we were really cautious. And I guess and my roommate Dantua had been in Mofretro with me.
And so you guys came from the same.
And so we were used to making ourselves happy as girls. And the boys didn't really matter. In fact, they said that we were always happy in our room. We were. And so, that was 3 years of first degree. And then I went to Presec to do national service.
What was that like?
That was lovely, but interesting. I went to class, and my classroom was filled. The buildings were not completed, so the windows had not been fixed. These boys were sitting at the windowsill. My classroom was packed. And I was teaching religious studies.
What was your first day like?
It was... Am I going to mark all these papers? Later on, I found out that, I was a young chick from Legon. I had come, so it was, let's go and check her out.
That's why they were all in your class.
They told me. Because over time, the numbers reduced, and I thought I was doing something wrong, so I found out. But they are very interesting young men. These days, I see them, they are big men.
Wow.
I was just talking about them 2 days ago. Some of them would come and ask me out, and I tell
You're
them,
kidding.
oh yes, I
How
said,
old were they?
oh, young boys, but they
Babies.
thought that. So I told them, you bring your Exeat and a Benz, and I'll go with you. But they were very, very, interesting young men, and
Wow.
I enjoyed my time at Presec. At Presec, and also at home, was when I started doing my garden. Mofretro, we had flower gardens. And that really honed my interest. My mother used to make us plant tomatoes, onions, and all that on a small scale. And in Mofretro, we did the flower gardens. Mofretro means children's garden.
Yeah.
And each house had a garden. And we managed the garden very well. So whilst at home, in Legon, for the 3 years, it was always aluta. So we were home a lot of the time. So I developed gardening. I'd had 50 beds of onions, which I sold at some point. So in Presec also, in the house that was given me, I had a garden. I ate from my garden, and I had a beautiful flower garden as well. So from Presec, then I went back to Legon to do communication studies.
Why communication studies?
Because by that time, I had realized that my desire to bring people to, I'm also somebody that doesn't like too much conflict.
Okay.
I like people to have understanding.
So you're always the mediator.
Yes, and also the fact that I wanted national development, I wanted businesses to connect better with their stakeholders. By that time, communication school had started, so I thought that I could do that through there.
But we didn't have no Stratcomm Africa.
No.
So what company did you have in mind? What were you going to do?
I was going to
when you
learn
school?
and then find out how I could use that, how that could be beneficial.
And no one said something like, what are you going to do with that degree? Because we know some older people will say, you have to be in a box so that you know that you're going to get there.
My mother dying so early probably did for me was that I took a lot of these decisions relating to my education myself, and with my big brother, Dr. Cobbah, the one who used to be at GIMPA. He really gave me guidance. I remember when I was choosing my subjects in Wesley Girls, he wrote me a long letter because my mathematics was not very strong, and I was so scared. But he wrote me an 11-page letter.
Wow.
Telling me, he was in Legon at that time.
What was the age gap between the two of you?
2 years.
Oh, wow.
I mean, with our mother dead, we had found a way of supporting each other
Where
quietly.
was your dad?
My father, as I said, my father and my mother separated when I was 6 years. He was around. He was now retired and quite ill, and therefore, but he took care of us. He took care of our education. Yeah, but as I said, I lived with my aunt. But so after Legon, the second degree, so I did my graduate diploma, and Professor Ansah, oh, may his soul rest in peace, he really helped me, he really directed me, and made me appreciate the need for communication in a country like Ghana. And Professor Kwame Karikari, he allowed me to he saw that I liked local stuff, so he would send me out to go and watch concert parties and write about that, because that's what I used to do with my mother. Our entertainment was kakeku in the evenings on Saturdays. So I was allowed to learn communication in a natural way, in a natural context. So when I finished, the U.S. Information Service wanted somebody to go and intern. And Prof. Sansa called me and said, I have selected you to go because I know you will not disgrace us. Wow, when Prof. Sansa says that, it's so I did my best. It was supposed to be for 6 weeks. It ended up being for 6 months because I hadn't found a job. Aww. But then eventually I found a job at GIHOC head office, being the public relations officer for the 26 companies of GIHOC at that time. How old was I? 25, 26, thereabout.
How was that responsibility?
It was exciting. It was exciting. I didn't sleep. Wow. And when I got there, you know, they had a marketing department which they had transitioned into a branch called CATCO. So when I got there, there was no public relations department.
So that was an exciting opportunity for you.
It was an exciting opportunity. And I did not have a public relations boss.
So you were your own boss? I
was my own boss.
So you got a first chance to be an entrepreneur.
Yes, that has been the story of my life. In fact, when I went, the office was scattered with paper and all that. I took off my slippers, cleaned the office, put my desk there, and started to work. You know, what I want to say is when you find yourself in these situations, make the most of it. I didn't realize that I was being prepared to be able to set up a company myself. So that was the first one.
Wow.
And I was there, whilst I was at USIS not finding a job, US Information Service not finding a job, I started looking for a school to go to. And I went to the education section and found a school called Cornell University in the US. So I wrote to them and they offered me a place.
Wow.
I requested to do a course in communication for developing nations, my passion. So I got it, but there was no money. And they couldn't give me a scholarship. So they gave me 2 years. They said they were so interested in my purpose of study that they would hold my place for 2 years for me to find money. So I went into prayer. Prayer was my weapon. And the Rotary Club at that time put out an advert for communications, people who are in communication to come for interviews. I went and then I came back and sat waiting for the outcome. Wasn't hearing from them. Well, whilst I was in Presec, I had a roommate in the apartment that was given us, who was being visited by this American consultant, Ralph Klump. Apparently he was watching me doing the gardening, cleaning, yes.
Wow.
And I sing, and I would be singing whilst I was doing it. Apparently all that has stayed with him. So one day he came to Ghana and he came to look for me.
Wow.
And I was at GIHOC and he said, what was I doing? I said, I'm working here, but I was looking to go to school, and I'd made that clear to my employers, and they said whenever I was ready, I could go. And he said, you know, I will take care of that.
Wow.
He said he would go and look for a scholarship for me. And he went and he wrote me a letter. I kept that letter. I couldn't believe what he wrote in it. I still don't believe in it. He said, I watched you at Presec, and I think that you're a great resource.
Wow.
If I invest in you, you'll be a good resource. You'll be of value to Ghana and to Africa. So I will pay your fees.
Wow.
And then I found out that it was an Ivy League school.
You didn't know?
No, I didn't know. So he couldn't get the scholarship, so he paid my fees.
Wow.
He paid my fees. He bought a ticket that took me from here to London. He waited in London for me. He told me that Ithaca, where Cornell is very cold. Went shopping with me in London to get my warm clothing, and then bought me a ticket to go to the US. Who say God no day? God day.
Where is he now? You don't even know.
I've been trying to find him. He is somebody that God just, I had prayed, and God knew I needed that. When your mother dies, God gives you so many mothers, including male mothers like this one. So I went to Cornell University, and after 1 year, he wrote to tell me that his stocks and things had gone down and he was going to have to withdraw the support. At that time, he had sent me the fees for the next term. I went into prayer. And one evening, I was there when my roommate from Legon, my friend Danto, called me and said, Esther, where are you? Rotary Club is looking for you. I think you got the scholarship. I became an international Rotary scholar.
Wow.
I got the scholarship for the second part of my studies.
So you didn't have to stress?
No. And it involved collecting data from Ghana, doing a couple of courses, and they paid everything. And I mean, so try my God. Just try my God. When you see me praising God all the time, it's not because I just want to, it's because that is burning in me, the praise of him. Like David, when I'm in a pit, he lifts me up. And therefore my work should be worship to him. My whole life is praise to him. So I finished Cornell University with other people paying the fees. So I was ready to come back home and serve. I could not stay 1 minute. I wanted to come back home and give back, you know, what other people had invested in me.
We have so much to talk about.
I know.
we just finished our time.
We did.
Talk to us about the importance of investing in your relationship with your children.
Okay.
Because you had your mom for a brief period of time, but she made such an impact in your life.
It's really, really important. And I think that because of that, I put a little bit of pressure on my children with too much love. My mother died in her 40s. So when I turned 40, I thought, have I prepared my children enough in the case of the unforeseen, you know? You need to invest love in them. Love them with everything you have. Teach them, let them be humble. Let them know how to rise and how to fall. But the most important thing is to give them the ammunition of God, so that in situations where they have no one to turn to, they can turn to their God. And that is how we have been living. We didn't get to talk about Stratcomm Africa.
You're going to come back. We'll talk about Stratcomm. You're going to come back. But also talk to the young people. I mean, a lot of people have lost their jobs. When we think of our work, our life's work, we think of money. We don't think of where can I be of service. So talk to us about having that service mindset and how that brings
service mindset together. Is key. I told you that I did 6 months at U.S. Information Service. That was not 6 months paid work. I served, and in the process, I learned a lot. For instance, I studied photojournalism. At USIS, I was involved in developing the, the newsletter, and I was given a camera every weekend to go out there and take pictures and come to the dark room and develop the pictures myself. I served. I was available, weekends, whatever. And during that service, I learned. Remember that Joseph in the Bible served, and through that became the prime minister. Service is important. Even in starting this organization, I served. Right now, I serve. I do a lot of pro bono work. Look at the Ghana Garden and Flowers show. Been running it for 8 years. People sometimes think that we're getting a lot of money from it. No, we're putting a lot in it because of the environment. And also through that, other people get jobs. Service is a blessing. Service is investment. But you shouldn't always expect that as soon as you do something small, you're going to get so many things. So I see a lot of young people sometimes really frustrated because we're looking for too much too early. And I see us also disturbing God a lot because He's given us the talents, He's given us the skills, and we're spending non-working hours in all-night prayers all the time, when what we are asking for, God has already given us. He's given us the knowledge. He says the power in you. He's given you the knowledge. He's given you, even He Himself came down from heaven to work. He came to work. Jesus worked.
Now you're taking us to church.
Oh, no. So no, but a lot of young people are, chasing after prophets, chasing after, looking for answers that are in them. So how do we, chasing motivational speakers to motivate them. You can be motivated or
bring you back.
Will you
come back next week to talk to us about your life as an entrepreneur? Because we need to learn from that experience. We now understand your makeup, what drives you, and sometimes it's important for you to know the person's makeup. So please, will you come back to talk to us about your experience and then Stratcomm?
Oh my goodness.
We want to keep you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Jufa.
Thank you.
It's been nice chatting with you. You got me talking.
That is Esther Cobbah, CEO of Stratcomm Africa. We're going to be talking to her about her entrepreneurship experience. I mean, a lot of us are looking to start our own ventures, but the most important thing is have a service mindset. Don't go anywhere. Breakfast Daily will be right back.